This is an original short story from Held Stories, a living archive of quiet human encounters. Here we try to create images of moments that are complete but not finished. Held Stories, Season 1, Episode 8. He took the walk that cost him his weekend. His face slid through the mud like a surfboard. After picking himself up, his arms stretched out like a vulture's wings, mud drifting off them. He looked down at his new suit, mud caked on the jacket. It stopped raining an hour earlier, and he decided then was a good time for a walk. Work delayed his plan, but he made it happen anyway. Walking through the city streets with his phone out, he misjudged the step onto the road. He phoned into work and let his boss know what happened. His boss was forgiving for the time being, but Andy would have to make up the lost hours on the weekend. He agreed with his boss and headed for home. On the bus, people watched him as the mud dried and bits chipped off when he shuffled with the lurch of the vehicle. He avoided eye contact the whole way home. Back home, he found a safe spot to soak his shirt and clean off his suit for the dry cleaners to have an easier time. He took a shower and sat in his dining room pondering working Saturday. It typically meant he couldn't drink the night before. This Friday was Oliver's birthday, so he would have to bow out of the alcohol. Not the greatest miss of all time. He doesn't often like getting drunk with that crowd. He decided to cook himself some lunch. After eating, it was time for another walk. This time, Andy kept the phone in his pocket. People hurried by, completely unaware of his existence. Women gave dodgy glances to his smiles and kept on about their day. Kids ran by, hardly noticing the man walking. This time would take him dangerously close to a liquor store, so he chose another path, toward his favorite convenience store. After purchasing the required junk food for the night, he returned home. Andy sat up in front of his computer and started scrolling his favorite streaming service for new releases and updated news feeds. Nothing was entertaining, so he put on a classic and let it play in the background. Nibbling away at his food, sipping at the pop, he hardly noticed the show. Instead, he began to plan out Saturday evening. Picking up his phone and scrolling through numbers was always messy to him. He found Mia's cell number and texted her to see if she was busy Saturday night. She always was available to him, and this Saturday was no different. He relaxed knowing there was at least one decent friend who would never let him down. Putting his phone back in his pocket, Andy returned to nibbling. Finishing his chips, he moved on to his bite-sized chocolate snack. Being a fan favorite, it took no more than 10 minutes to scarf down the oversized bag. Stomach growling in a strong effort to digest two kinds of food groups, his thoughts lost congruency. Slipping in and out of time, his mind mixed the past and the present to the point Andy realized he was falling asleep. He looked at his watch. It read 2:59, good enough for a brief nap. Waking up, he checked the alarm clock beside his bed. It was 5:14. Grunting and stretching, Andy rolled out of bed and headed for the kitchen again, this time to fix something light. Reheated Chinese food for Monday would do the trick. Waiting for the microwave to finish the meal, his mind wandered again, this time keeping track of time. Past relationships, past outings with Mia, nights with old friends he'd rather not remember. The ding of his food completing its cooking cycle startled Andy from his memories. He took the food to the couch and began eating. He realized daydreaming took him to his bedtime. Andy cleaned up his dishes, moved back to bed, and was asleep soon after 9. The next day, he took extra care not to watch his phone at all when he left the office. His job was good for the paycheck. Working as an accountant required analytical abilities within his control since childhood. It tested his mettle and tenacity. working for such a large firm. Over lunch, Pita Jack was calling. Jack was always a character behind the screen. He would toss the pita and it would land on the grill. Once the pita was warmed through, Jack would spin bottles of sauce and deftly sprinkle toppings on heaping amounts. Andy was a regular and should receive a lifetime discount any day now. Eating his pita on the way back to work, he was very cautious to avoid any steps or curbs. The rest of the day whipped by with Andy knowing it was Friday and Oliver's birthday was going to be a smash hit. 40 people were on the guest list. Andy couldn't wait to see who showed and who doesn't. Before leaving for the day, Andy reminded his boss he'd work Saturday until 2 to make up the time he lost. His boss agreed and sent him on his way. Arriving at the pub at 5:30, Andy showed a big smile. He was about the only person in a suit. This made the pub feel uneasy at first. Everyone else was either in t-shirts or halter tops. Andy didn't care. It was Oliver's birthday. He saw a group in the room off to the side and went to investigate. The party had already started without him. Not that he would mind. Saving money on dinner made the night easy. Throughout the night it was as though he had rejected a shot at least 10 times before people were too intoxicated to ask. Libations were thrown about like candy. The most, of course, were received by Oliver himself. 5 times Andy spoke with Oliver only to gauge the level of alcohol in Oliver's system. Every time they spoke, Andy would grin. His friend was someone who took life too seriously until alcohol factored in and loosened his guard. Then Oliver would let everything slip in slurred speech. He mixed in with the crowd, talking with the men and chatting up the women. The last thing he wanted before a workday was to go home with someone, especially not one of Oliver's friends. But he made his presence known nonetheless. This took a lot of heat off Oliver's family, who were scarce in number and mostly tended to Oliver himself. Walking to the washroom, he smiled at the women who walked past and avoided eye contact with most of the men. They were nearly all burly, trades or gym, and he wasn't sure, but he knew better than to advertise he didn't fit in this place. Reaching the bathroom door and opening it, he was hit with the foulest odor. He entered the washroom while breathing through his mouth. Washing his hands before using the latrine, Andy noticed a man smirking at him. It was then that Andy realized he'd best use the washroom later. He exited quickly and rejoined the group. It was as though they already drank their fill and were on to round 3 by the time Andy returned. Asking around for a second washroom, he learned there was only one for the men. He decided to hold it in until he was able to find a convenience store later in the evening. This made staying at the party that much more interesting. Difficulties aside, he was able to make peace with the need to leave early. Saying farewell to the clearly inebriated Oliver, Andy took off to find the nearest store to use the washroom. Lucky for him, a grocer allowed him in after scanning him up and down, saying he looked professional. Relaxing on the bus ride home, he recognized the vehicle was almost empty. Sitting down in an empty chair, the bus lurched to a stop. A man boarded, showed his ticket, and sat beside Andy. "Hey, son," the man said. "Yes, sir?" Andy asked, not sure what to make in this engagement. "Brett, not sir." The man sneered. "Sorry, been a long life." Andy shrugged it off. "No worries, Brett. What can I do for you?" "Take some time out of your day to entertain an old man." "No problem," Andy said with a smile, knowing the party geared him for this moment. The two chatted about work, how the man was a CMO at a major automotive dealership chain around town. Andy brought up his life as an accountant, and the man instantly perked up. The two went through a Rolodex of names to see if they had mutual connections. Turns out Andy's CFO was a close friend of this man, so Brett explained what to expect if the two ever met. Getting off at his stop, Brett let out a big smile and a half wave and headed off north toward home. Andy's bus kept lurching side to side for another 20 minutes. He pulled the cord and got off himself. Making his way home, he stopped at a local supermarket just to find a midnight snack. Having found his noodles and beef, he continued. He slipped upstairs, almost smelling like alcohol. He nibbled away at the food and put on some music to calm his nerves. Being out at a party was one thing, but a pub like that didn't sit well with him. Too many gruff characters for his liking. Perhaps next time he would return home to change first. Night came swiftly. Knowing he had to work the next day, Andy cleaned his dish, tossed it into recycling, and headed off to bed. Thoughts of time spent with Mia filled his mind as he drifted away. A smile crept over his lips. Working on a Saturday was easy. He did his job, but took more time off than he should. This Saturday would prove to be unlike the rest. After turning on his computer, he stood to stretch and noticed gray hair of a man bobbing up and down around the cubicles. Shrugging this off, he went back to his computer. "Trying to get on full time?" the CFO asked. Andy, being so much lower in the corporate ladder, could only smile. This has been Held Stories. Held Stories is maintained as a living archive of created images of moments that are complete but not finished. Editions will be made available as they are prepared for those who wish to retain them and support their preservation. For those interested, please visit www.heldstories.org for more information.